Hi everyone. This is the continuation of the previous topic, exceptions in Python, part 3 video. Okay, so today this is the last video in exceptions where I'll be teaching you about try block, except block, else block, finally block, and at last the raise exceptions. Okay, now try block, it will try all the set of block. If there is an error here, it moves to the except block. Okay, if the try block successfully executes the code, immediately it will move to the else part. Okay, executes when there is no error. Try and else together it works. If there is an error in the try block, it moves to the except block, but it doesn't move to the else block. Okay, finally block all the three blocks if it doesn't execute. If any, even if it successfully executes or it doesn't execute, which means there are error, the finally block will obviously execute. Okay, so raise exception. What is raise exception? It is a user defined exception. So these are various blocks in exceptions we'll be learning. Okay, try, except, else, and finally. Now let me teach you with an example here. So see the example here. This is as usual same example. A is equal to 3, B is equal to 0. Try print A by B, which means here it is 3 divided by 0, which means there is an exception, a runtime error. So it calls the exception. From here it moves here. Okay, except exception as E. Now E is the object which catches the exception and it prints cannot divide a number by 0. Fine. So this sentence is written by the user. So it prints cannot divide a number by 0 or any other sentence whichever you write, comma the object E, which means this will display, the output will be cannot divide a number by 0, followed by what is E here? Division by 0. So E is the exception. What is the exception? It is the division by 0. Okay, and then finally either try block or except block, whichever it executes, finally will obviously execute at the end. So finally you will have by along with the output and then execution completed. Understood the flow here? So A is equal to 3, B is equal to 0. It will come here. It will try the given instruction. If there is an error, runtime error, immediately it catches the exception. So it comes here, except exception as E. Now E will have division by 0. Okay, it will come inside and it will print whatever the user has written here, followed by division by 0. And at last, finally block, either try block will execute or if except block executes, finally will obviously execute at the end after all these blocks. Okay, and then finally it prints execution completed because we have written another statement after the execution of all these blocks. Okay, now coming to the second example here. A is equal to 3, B is equal to 2. Now B is not equal to 0, B is equal to true. What will happen here? I'm trying. First it will try. What it tries, 3 divided by 2, it's nothing but 1.5, right? There is successful execution here. Then coming here, K is equal to, I'm reading an input and a number, I'm reading a number. When you make use of input, when you're reading a number, it reads it as a string, but I have to typecast it to integer because I should read an integer number. So now I have to give input as an integer. Suppose instead of giving an integer number, if I type R, if I give input as R here, K value is equal to R, which means it's not an integer value. What happens? There is an error. What is the error? It is a value error, right? So from here it moves to the exception, except value error as E. So what I have written here, print invalid input. This is my own sentence. You can write your own sentence. Since it is a value error, instead of integer, I am reading a string. I am giving input as a string during the runtime. At that time I'll get invalid input. Fine, it will not move to this exception. It directly comes here to value error as E. So invalid input, finally it prints by. Okay, so what is the output I'll get? 1.5 followed by value error, that is invalid input. Then I get by. But when you write coding like this, which means except value error as E should come before except exception as E. If not, any kind of exception this will take. You got the point? Understood? Okay, now moving on to the second example. See here. Now you're making use of a function concept. What will happen? Print add number 1 comma 2. What are the arguments I'm passing? 1 and 2. So I'm adding number. I'm making a function call to add numbers. Now control from here, it will go to the function definition using the def keyword. Num1 comma num2. What is num1 here? It is 1 and num2 is 2. Return num1 plus num2. So the return value for this particular function, output first initial will be 1 plus 2. It is 3. Okay, now it moves on to the second one. Print add numbers 5 comma 10. So num1, again control will go back to function definition, 5 and 10 here. So it is 5 plus 10, 15. Now come to the third line. Print add numbers 7 comma a. 7 is an integer, a is a string. Fine, can you add integer and a string? No, you cannot add. Then what type of error it is? It is type error. Okay, type mismatch error. So what will happen? Immediately I'll get an error here. After getting error, the remaining two lines will not be executed because I'm not making use of any exception handlers. Understood? I'm not using any exception handler. It is a normal program. So I'll get output 3, 5 followed by errors, and my program will be terminated abruptly without getting any output. Understood? Okay. How do we avoid this? See the solution here. Okay, the same concept. Def add numbers num1 comma num2. I'm putting the entire concept within try block. Try return num1 plus num2. Okay, suppose see the condition here, 1 comma 2, 1 comma 2, output will be 3 here. Since it will try, no error, so output will be 3, it will return 3. See the next line, second line, 5 and 10, I'll get 15 here. Now see the third line, 7 comma a. So 7 comma a, now it will come here. There is a type mismatch, which means it will move to the except part, type error. So I'll get the output as invalid error, invalid number. For the third function call, I'll get invalid number. Then it moves on to the fourth one, 20 plus 21, I'll get 41 here. And finally, execution completed. See, it's the same program, but without exception handler and with exception handler here. Without exception handler, first two lines will be executed. Third line, since there is an error, it abruptly terminates the execution. Okay, I will not get the remaining output. Now see the same example with exception handlers. Using try and except block, I catch the error and I print, I return what is a return value I'm giving here? Invalid number. You can give any input here, any sentence. Okay, so invalid. Once the third line is executed, I'll get invalid number, and then it moves on to the fourth one. I'll get the output because it's correct. I get 41, and next one is execution completed. This is the difference between with exception handler and without exception handler, but with the help of functions I have explained here. Okay, now moving on to the next concept. Third one. Now see the same example. Okay, now same example. Now I'll be teaching you about name error. Exception type of error is the name error. So what will happen? Instead of return num1 plus num2, instead of num2, if I give num22, okay, I'm passing the parameter as number 22, the name of the parameter number 22, but it is declared as num2 here in the function definition. Okay, in such case what will happen? Print add number 1 comma 2, it will just go here. Num1, num2 will be 1 and 2, it will come here. Try return num1 plus num22. Num22 is the name present here? No, it's not declared, it's not used. Then what is the output? For the first time when it encounters this statement, I'll get invalid parameter. Second time, again it will go num22, again it is invalid parameter. Third time, third sentence, again it will go, again it will check, again you will get invalid parameter even though you have a type mismatch. Then again for the next one also invalid parameter, and finally invalid parameter. Okay, execution completed. For all the function call, you will get invalid parameter, finally execution completed. Okay, you understood? Now the next topic. Okay, now I'll teach you about raise exception. Raise exception. Now see this example here. So in this example, print add numbers 1, 2, print add numbers 5, 10, A, B, this is B, A, B, 99, 1, execution completed. What will happen? See the output, the same example, the previous example itself. I'll pass on all these values and I'm adding. So first one, 1, 2, 3, 5 and 10, 15. Both the parameters are strings. So in such case, if you remember the previous class, if you add two strings using plus operator, then it will be, you're concatenating the string, it will be AB. So it is getting concatenated, you're getting AB, 99 plus 100, and execution completed, right? But to perform addition, it should be either integer values or floating point values. So we have to make use of exception. How do we make use of exception? See the example here. Okay, the same thing, print add numbers 1 comma 2, print add numbers a comma b. So it is 1 and 2, it will go here. Okay, num1 num2, 1 and 2 will be replaced. Try if is instance num1, parameter num1 is of type int, or is instance num1 is of type float. And see, it's and operator between these, either it can be integer or float. You can add either integer or float, or float and integer, float and float, integer and integer. Okay, and is instance num2 should be an integer or num2 should be a float. If this holds good, only then I have to return num1 plus num2. Num1 is 1 here, so it is integer. Num2 is also integer. So if it is true, it will come and return 1 plus 2. So the output will be 3. I'll get 3 here for the first one. See the second one, print add numbers a comma b. What is a comma b? Both are strings, so it will come here. Num1 is not of type int, num1 is not also type float. It is either, num2 is either integer nor float, so it will not go here. Immediately it move to the else part. Else raise exception. This is if this is else. Within else it is raise exception. Only int and float values are allowed. So I'll get the answer as only int and float values are allowed. So this is my own sentence I have put here. Okay, this is raise exception, user defined exceptions. Fine. Then after that, except if there are any other errors, except exception as e, return e. Apart from this exception, if you have any other exception, then this particular part will be executed. And finally I'll get execution completed. Understood? This is how raise exceptions will work. Okay, so we are defining our own exception. The other exceptions like type error, name error, the other errors are there, no? They are inbuilt exceptions. So with the help of raise, we can use our own exceptions. We can define our own exceptions. Then the last one is else part. I'll tell you what is else block. Now see here, add number. So the first line that will be executed is add numbers 5 and 2. Now control from here will go to function definition. What is num1? It is 5 and num2 is 2. It will come here. Try print num1 plus num2. Okay, what is num1 plus num2? 5. So the output will be 5 plus 2, 7. 7, I'll get the output as 7. Okay, now after successful completion, it will not move to the except part. So it will not move to these two parts. After successful completion, immediately it will come to the else part and it will print successful. Understood? So if the statement has been successfully executed, when you have an else block, after successful completion, else block will compulsorily be executed. Okay, now if there is an error here, if there is an error, it will move to the except block. After the except block execution, it will not move to the else part. Only this part will be executed. Got it? So else block will execute only when try is successfully executed. Okay, now you understood. I'll just recap with the first concept here. So you have these many blocks: try block, except, else, finally, and raise exceptions. Try, you execute, you try here. If there is any error, it will move to the except block. Fine. If there is no error, then if you have an else block, then obviously after try, else will compulsorily be executed. Okay. If either block is getting executed, if you have a finally block, this will always be executed. If you have a finally block, raise exception is user defined exceptions. We define the exception. Understood? So this is a complete concept about exceptions in Python. Thank you.